Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to my review of episode 5 of The Rings of Power. So, just straight off the bat, I want to get this out of the way. I think this is the best or slash the least worst, least bad episode so far, not only of the season, but of possibly the show entirely. I think this was definitely much bigger step above everything we've seen so far. So, I want to say that I think it did a much better job. Now, we'll talk about the reasons why. I'm going to have plenty of issues with this episode too, but I'll talk about one of the main reasons why I think that is so. The main reason is that it was a much more focused episode in terms of who it was centered on. Mainly, it was centered on the theoretically most interesting storylines. So you had it mainly focused on Eregion, what's going on there. With Celebrimbor and Halbrand, you had a bit of Gil-galad there as well going on with them, and then you have what's going on in Numenor and also the dwarves. So you have the most interesting stories, superficially speaking, that are presented there. There was not a single mention of the Harfoots whatsoever, not a single mention of the Men of the South, and even Galadriel only pops up at the last few minutes or so, and it's very fleeting, and she doesn't have an impact on the episode because she is one of the worst parts of the show. But so broadly speaking, the reason it was good is because it cut out all that fat, a lot of that fat that we just cannot stand to watch and that is completely meaningless to the show, and instead focused on the main storylines that we know are going to progress the actual story forward. And so I've got a bunch of dot points here and I'm just going to go through them, what I thought. Some of the downsides though. I thought the editing was kind of choppy at times. There were some moments where it kind of just jumped from scene to scene. Like there was one moment where it's hovering on Gil-galad, a scene with him, and then it shows 5 seconds of Elrond running, as in pursuit of Galadriel, wherever they've taken her, and then 5 seconds, and after that 5 seconds, it immediately cuts to the dwarves. So there's just this weird choppy editing that occurs in the episode. I don't understand it, but it wasn't the whole time, but just at times. So I thought that was kind of poor. Also, I got here, one of the things I want to go back to mention, one of the best parts, mention the dwarves. I think they've kind of been the strongest part of the show so far, and I think that continues and is reaffirmed in this episode, particularly with older Durin. I think he is the standout character. He feels the most authentically Tolkienian to the universe that we've seen out of any of the characters. So I think the actor there is doing a really good job, and even his son, younger Durin, is pretty good too. So I think they are the strongest parts of the show, both the father and son there. So I think that's good. Just going down this list, going back to some of the complaints I've had in the previous episodes about the use of quotes, stealing quotes from previous Lord of the Rings materials. This one, in one scene in Numenor, it mentions the line, "Far greener country under a swift sunrise," when they're given a speech. It's completely stolen, obviously, from Return of the King, when Gandalf says it. But the reason it's so bad in the show is because in Lord of the Rings, in Return of the King, it's said at such a crucial moment where the stakes are so dire for them. They think they're about to meet their end. Whereas here, it's just said in kind of a, like, just off the cuff kind of scene where he's giving a speech about something happening at this lake in Numenor, whatever. It's completely inconsequential and insignificant. It means nothing to the moment. It's just clearly there for that Easter egg moment for some fans to be like, oh, look, he said the thing that we love that he said in the movie, yay, whatever. So it's just copying Lord of the Rings blatantly. One of the dumb scenes was when you have a small fight or brawl that breaks out in Numenor between Elendil and some of the other political class that are against them. There's the character, the guy who's like one of the military generals, Valandil, his name is. He gets killed. He gets stabbed through the back. It's so predictable and so stupid because he's attacked by a guy with a sword and he overpowers him, pins him to the ground, breaks his arm, and then throws his sword. He's holding his sword to his neck, but decides not to kill him because of Elendil. Throws the sword to the ground right next to the guy, starts walking away, and then gets stabbed right in the back. I mean, you could see it coming a mile away. It was so stupid, and this guy is meant to be this really like smart military person, whatever, and it was nonsense to me. One of the bigger issues with the episode as well, as a narrative thing, is the whole show hinges on the manipulation of Celebrimbor by Sauron, who is going by Anatar at the moment. You know, what is he called? The giver of gifts or the bringer of gifts, whatever it is. He's manipulating Celebrimbor into making all of these rings. There's issues with this on both sides, because you either have to, based on what the show is showing us, you either have to believe that Celebrimbor is a completely dumb person, elf, that just does not know what he's doing, which he's not meant to be. He's meant to be a very smart, smith who makes all these amazing creations. So that either he's very smart, or Sauron's plan is useless, because he obviously has a complete power to manipulate people more than just his words, by just like sheer power. It looks at times like he's just staring intently at people, at Celebrimbor, and just making him do what he wants. It's like, well, why does he have to go to all this effort to convince him to make the rings? Why not just completely manipulate him off the bat? It doesn't make sense. So both things are not done correctly, and I feel like seeing the motivations behind Celebrimbor doesn't feel justified in the sense of who he's meant to be and versus what he is doing. It feels like a complete leap in the narrative. And just going on from this, I want to also mention, spoke about Galadriel a bit. She pulls up at the very end. There's a really dumb scene where she's revealed to be like in this little mini cage prison cell that the orcs have her in, and they let her out of the cell. The first thing I thought when they were releasing her from the cell is she's not handcuffed. They haven't handcuffed her. She's a prisoner and they haven't handcuffed her. And what does she do? She grabs a knife straight away and holds it to Adar's neck. I mean, it was so predictable. It was so stupid. Why she's the prisoner and they've done nothing to restrain her whatsoever? It makes no sense. And then another final complaint. They do actually have a kind of a cool shot of these orcs coming over the hill towards Eregion. And you can kind of see, a sizable army amassing. But then they completely undercut that in the next scene when they then cut to a camp scene with the orcs. It's meant to be the same orcs, and it looks like there's about 20 of them there. So this whole issue of size and scale is completely out of whack. You don't feel, one moment you feel like, okay, they've got a big force, next one they just feel very small and contained. And that is a broader issue with the show as well, not just with size and scale, but also with time. The characters seem to travel to locations that are really far away, like massive distances, but they just seem to get there in like an hour's time. It doesn't feel, there's no sense of time or anything like that, or scope or scale in the show. It's completely lacking in that regard. But yeah, so those are my main complaints with the show. But otherwise, like I said, I think it's the best, or you could say least bad episode of the show so far. But I mean, it's not saying much when you're comparing to what has come before. But look, it's a step in the right direction, whatever way you want to look at it. And so credit where it's due, and I genuinely hope it continues. I hope it gets better. I want to see it get better, even though I've hated everything that's come so far and I hate the existence of the show. I'll give credit where it's due, and I'm going to be as objective as possible. I think it was a step in the right direction, but we'll see where it goes from there. So yeah, that's my overall thoughts, guys, in this episode. Kind of intrigued to see what happens now with the whole battle promising with Eregion on the horizon. So we'll see what happens there. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.